If you've ever gone into a Catholic parish for Mass, you've probably heard a vast range of musical styles. You might hear traditional hymns, contemporarily styled pop music, Gregorian chant, or even polyphony. And with such a myriad of styles, one might ask, why all this diversity? Does there really exist a type of sacred music that is a style of music more fitting for divine worship than others? And if so, why? What indeed makes this music more fitting or sacred? Now, some might suppose that there are no real answers to these questions at all. Because music is about personal preference, right? Any music can be sacred if we feel that it is, right? Well, no. As counterintuitive as it might seem to modern ears, the Church has indeed provided concrete answers to these questions. And yes, there is indeed such a thing as sacred music. Let me explain. First, we must realize that our contemporary situation is really nothing new. The Church has been through all this before. By the end of the 19th century, the confusion in regard to sacred music had reached a period similar to our own day. During this period of the late 19th century, many compositions written for the use in the sacred liturgy were in an operatic or theatrical style. For example, in Italy, famous composers such as Rossini and Donizetti, as well as other lesser-known composers, wrote liturgical music that was in the same style as what the faithful might have heard the night before at the theater. Or in the United States, many Irish-American communities sang hymns at Mass in the style of the Irish ballad or the sweet song, which was also sung in pubs. Well, this should all sound familiar to us today. Because by the beginning of the 20th century, some guidance was really needed, and this clarification came from Pope St. Pius X on the 23rd of November, 1903, in his motu proprio, Tra le sollecitudini. In this document, Pope St. Pius X, in the midst of this liturgical confusion, made it clear that there is indeed such a thing as sacred music. That is, a specific type or style of music that is set apart from other types of styles of music in that it is most fitting for divine worship. He clarified 3 principles of sacred music, which are also the principles required in the sacred liturgy as a whole. That is, according to the Pope, there are 3 features or qualities that music must possess if that music is to be first dubbed sacred, and second, to be considered worthy of divine and Christian worship. The first principle is holiness. By holiness, he argued that it must exclude all profanity, not only in itself, but in the manner in which it is presented by those who execute it. Now, we must understand that the word profanity here does not mean including the common understanding of cuss or swear words. No, the Pope uses the word profanum from the Latin meaning outside of the temple. What is meant here is that the music shouldn't have a similarity with the style of music that's commonly performed outside of Mass. In other words, the music shouldn't be secular. The second principle is excellence of form. Well, what does this mean? Simply put, the music must be true art. It should not be trite, overly sentimental, and something written by unskilled or untrained musicians. It should be something that has an inherent aesthetic quality. Finally, the third principle is universality. Universality here means that music must be universally recognized as having the qualities of holiness and beauty, so that anyone from any part of the world can hear the music and perceive it as holy and beautiful. While many forms of music fulfill these requirements, Pope St. Pius X argues that the form of music that most supremely fulfills them is Gregorian chant. So much did he emphasize this that he laid out the following rule. The more closely a composition for church approaches in its movement, inspiration, and savor the Gregorian form, the more sacred and liturgical it becomes. And the more out of harmony it is with that supreme model, the less worthy it is of the temple. This sentiment was echoed in encyclicals and other documents by Popes Pius XI, Pius XII, Paul VI, John Paul II, and Benedict XVI, as well as the Second Vatican Council's liturgical document Sacrosanctum Concilium and the later document Musicam Sacram. While modern music is not only permitted but encouraged in the liturgy, Pius X urges that care must be given so that the liturgical compositions of modern style, which are admitted to the Church, may contain nothing profane, be free from reminiscences of motifs adopted from the theaters, and be not fashioned even in their external forms after the manner of profane pieces. Pope Pius' message to the Church was as clear and uncompromising as its timing was opportune. After all, as we saw, the landscape of liturgical music by the end of the 19th century had reached confusion similar to that in our own day. This is also why, even today, we should not regard Pope St. Pius' message as some antique of the past to be discarded. Far from it. We have much to learn, even now, from this principles of sacred music. So in the next few videos, we will do just this. We will examine in greater detail each one of these three principles and learn from Pope Pius' insights. This is a worthy task and is indispensable for understanding and choosing music for the liturgy. After all, as the Holy Father claimed, it is in these principles that render music sacred in the first place. Brothers and sisters, keep studying. This is Father James Moore for the Western Dominican Province.